Hello everyone, and today we have big news, a lot of changes in the beta, mainly a lot of recipes, equipment, and again we have the Xelor getting a bit modified. It's actually quite a big modification, so let's dive into that. So first of all, we have new Wake Up Flip and Steamer faces. So they are adding 4 faces to each class, and now this time they added for the Wake Up Flip and the Steamer. Unfortunately, there is a bug at the moment, and so you cannot really go to the Dofus beta and create a new class. It just doesn't allow you. But let's believe in this, okay? Besides that, we also have a new change in the inventory interface, which I will show you guys now. So when you open your inventory now, behind the character, they've put it like a type of gradient. I mean, it's better than before, right? And they want kind of this to stay like this for a while. You can also see some particles. I think it's cool. Why we don't have the new interfaces with the new colors, we'll have this for now, okay? There were a lot of fixes that got corrected now in very classes, like to make them more fluid, for example. A lot of debug as well. And in the Miscellaneous now we have, when you create a new class, it will appear the difficulty from 1 to 5. Besides that, we also have class mechanics from the guide are now functional for Ozymodas, Rogue, Zobal, Upper Mage, and Kali. This is pretty good because it allows new players to understand their classes or people that are trying a new class. You can also go and try to beat the Christmas Island dungeons. They are now available for you to do it in the beta. And now we come for the recipes. So a lot of recipes low level changed. So some of them got way easier, others not so much. But all the subtracts now will just require you one board. So if you come here to the jobs and then you come for the lumberjack, crafting lumberjack, you'll see that, let me put a higher level. You'll see that the subtract now it should at least be one board. I know that it's showing 2 boards. I think this is wrong because it says here that it should be just one. But the level 41, as you can see, now only requires 1 board. I don't know if it's just a shrub strat that will be like that, but it shouldn't be. I think the shrub strat should also be 1 plank, but at least the other ones are like that. I don't know if they saw the shrub strat and they will change it later on. Probably I think they will, because according to these, the shrub strat counts as a subtract. Also, a lot of items now you don't need to have a restriction of AP and movement points. Even level 200 equipment, now you can use them without having that restriction that you would have, that you cannot have more than 11 action points, for example. Even here, the Professor Shah no longer have an equipment requirement, and it's super nice, so you don't have to juggle around and try to find a good combination for them. Now you don't have any type of requirement. There is also 3 new sets and a new item, and they belong to the Troll Fair. Probably you can get them in the Troll Fair. So I did not manage to find these equipments here. I tried to search for the Captain Shaffer, Mamaya Yutu, and the Dark Blood set. I did not find them. They might not be in the encyclopedia yet. Either way, let me know in the comments if you guys found and how. Then we also have another equipment that also got modified. We have, for example, the Sponge set, the one that you get level 20. Now instead of the critical bonus, you get air damage bonus. This is actually super good because normally you don't need so much critical in the beginning of the game, and air damage is always nice to have, even though people that normally do the foam set, they normally go for water and not so much for agility. Besides that, we also have a lot of different equipments that got modified. For example, the Salak shield, instead of giving 80 luck, gives 40 luck and 40 power. So overall it's kind of a buff, so it gives 40 power to everything. Even though if you use this shield, you should more or less always use it for luck, so for chance. So I don't think that having the power here is super important. But the Cycloid here, the Cycloid set, got a slight nerf. Quite a bit in the critical, actually got 12% to 6% if you just use 2 items. Then a lot of different items either got a buff or a nerf. All the legendary items, equipments, they now give wisdom, which is quite interesting. It allows you, if you don't like the wisdom, it allows you to mage the equipment and just take off all the wisdom and put maximum in other stuff that you would like. Also, the Ephedria rings now do not have any type of conditions. It's actually super nice. There's also this set here, the whale, which I think this cape here and this shield did not exist, and perhaps even this hat, I don't remember. I remember the boots and I remember the belt. I don't know about the cape and the helmet and the shield, but yeah, if you have everything, it's quite a lot of different stats. You have a lot of vitality and you get 4 action points, so you cannot have more than 11 action points and more than 5 action movement points with this build because of these restrictions. But with this set here, you already get 4 action points, so it's basically you get 11 because you get 1 action point at level 100, so you get 11 and you get 4 movement points. Then you just put Vulbis and the Exo movement point, so it's a very good set if you want to economize money. You don't need many Exos, for example, you just need to use this set and it's good to go. And it's very good because it's more or less a multi-elemental set, a 3-elemental set. So actually it seems quite interesting and also gives you a lot of different resistances. Seems a very balanced set and more or less low cost because you just need these items and you're pretty much good to go. Besides that, there were also other equipments level 200 that got introduced. I looked a bit into them, they seem quite interesting, but I don't have the knowledge yet to tell you guys if it's actually good or not. But in the future I will make sure to cover that up, okay? So now we have the Xelor balancing, and so we have now the teleportation and the astrolabe that got switched, and the Accomplice and the Xelor's dials as well. I don't like this change at all. So if I showed you guys here my Xelor, so I'm here with my Xelor, and as you can see, besides that, there are also some question marks, but let's ignore that. They are probably like just getting new icons perhaps, but I do not understand why they said that they switched the spells, because they are still, you get still the Accomplice level 5 and the Xelor's dials at level 15, and you have the teleportation at level 10, and you have the other one, the astrolabe, at level 120. I don't know if they forgot to switch them up, but if they actually switch for these two, I do not like, because teleportation is super essential in the beginning of the game, and the Accomplice is so much better than the Xelor's dial in general, okay? So the Xelor's dial is better if you are trying to reduce action points from your enemies, and the Accomplice is so much more versatile. But now the astrolabe, if you cast it on yourself, you teleport the caster to the previous position. So it's kind of similar to the spontaneous, like to the return spontaneous. So I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, it's always a bit better, but I still think that teleportation could be more interesting, even though that you can use this on yourself to, for example, you do roll back, and then on the next turn you do this astrolabe on yourself, and then you go back to the other position where you were, okay? So this could be interesting perhaps to this type of plays. The oscillation now goes back to 2 durations again. The conservation goes back again for 2 action points. The Howlback now does not reduce the duration of enchantments like it was. The instability, the glyph, now it just 6, it went back again to 6 range. So previously it was 0 range, then they increased to 3, and now they increased again to 6. And the mummification now also applies the telefrag again on the caster, and it no longer reduces the utility spells of the Xelor. So there's a lot of change and back changes going on. The glass also, this one here, the Knell, now it's from 3 and 3 turns. I do not like this very much. It's a big nerf on the multi-elemental builds. But then we have the gear that now it has 6 range. 5 was already good, and now they increased again for 6, and now they increased to 6 is actually super good. It allows you to position your enemies really easily, and you already get it at level 20. Now you have the Souvenir and the Reflect and the Cog and the Disruption that gives you Lifesteal. So this is actually quite interesting. So instead of the clock, the Water Clock, and the Drying Up and the Dark Ray having Lifesteal, now you have these 4 spells here that have Lifesteal. In my opinion, this is actually quite huge, and I actually mentioned this before, that it will be more important to have the lifesteal in spells that you actually do not require a lot of action points. So having it like this is actually much better, and you can also now opt to go for the agility build early level. So in my opinion, I think that's the best approach that you can do now in the Xelor. It's to go early game with the Shriveling and the Souvenir that gives you lifesteal. So having these 2 spells already really low level, it will allow you to progress in the game way fast and way better overall, okay? Also, the Shriveling overall is just super strong at the moment. So I was just not using the agility build because you get the Dark Ray with lifesteal, but it's not the case anymore. So now you have the Souvenir that gives you lifesteal, and so allows you to go for agility build way earlier. And you can also opt, if you prefer, with an intelligence build, because the Disruption now also gives you lifesteal. Besides that, the clock, now you can use it 2 times per target again, which is quite nice because that was actually something that I also talked in a previous video, that the clock was only able to use 1 time, and now you can use it 2 times in the same target. It actually allows you to stack the clock way faster. This is much better now. And to finish things off, we have the Xelor sunglass that gives you an instant damage when you apply this. So before, you will just do the damage after some turns or after you consumed some telefrags on the enemy, and now you do damage immediately, and then you also do that damage afterwards. So that's a big buff for this spell. Honestly, it will be super good now. The only thing is that you only get it level 145, but nevertheless, it's still super good. And to really finish things off, now we have the petrification. This spell here, whenever you do damage to a telefrag enemy, you reduced this spell by 1 action point, up to 2 action points, so you can only, the maximum is by 2 action points. But now, instead of being just 2 turns, now you can have it for 3 turns. This is actually quite nice. It's very important because it's not every turn. Mainly if you play it, for example, in a multi-critic build, it's important because you'll never use the petrification a lot of times. So if you just use, for example, one time per turn, it allows you, or even some turns you cannot really use the petrification, so it allows you to be a bit more versatile in your tactic, in your turns, and not worry too much about using these all the time. So guys, let me know what you guys think about these new changes. I also have a file in my Discord that basically shows all the recipes from before to after, so it's a bunch of different recipes, so feel free to check it out and let me know in the comments what did you guys think about these changes. Also, if you like my content, consider subscribing, and see you next time.